Hello everybody, so today I'm going to be doing the promised try a volume video. I have 9 volumes of manga to talk about in this video, and I tend to get kind of chatty. So we're gonna jump right in. It has been a while since I've read a couple of these. These are all pretty much all the volume ones I've read since the beginning of the year. So some of them I read in January, and it's been a while since January. It's hard to believe, but that's true. So my thoughts aren't the freshest. I'm going off of the reviews I posted on Instagram mostly and the notes I wrote. So yeah, let's jump right in. So the first volume one I want to talk about is Phantom Busters Volume 1. I don't have this physically. I read it on the Shonen Jump app. I think that's the one it's on. So this is a pretty straightforward supernatural comedy manga following this group of boys who eventually start an exorcist club and go around exorcising the ghosts they come across. So I'm going to be 100% honest and say that I was prepared to really dislike this manga. It is kind of getting a bit of hype in terms of like the new shonen action manga that are coming out. It's kind of got a little bit of hype. It doesn't have an anime yet, so it's not that popular, but I have seen quite a few people talking about it, and my track record with those manga has not been good. So I was a little wary of this. I was expecting just high school boys fighting monsters, just like so many of these new manga are. But this one was pleasantly surprising to me. First of all, my main concern when it comes to shonen manga, the thing that I care most about is the characters. And I feel like a lot of the shonen manga, especially the action ones that are coming out recently, are focusing more on the monsters. Look at these monsters. Look at how scary they are, how big they are, how cool they are, right? Let's fight the big monsters. I don't care about that. I want you to have really good characters in your shonen manga so I can care about them, and then they have to fight big monsters. I care about the characters, so I care about their fights with the monsters. But just putting in big monsters is not going to make me care about your manga, despite what these authors seem to believe. So that's just me anyway. So I was pleasantly surprised when this volume 1 took the time to slowly introduce us to the characters. I feel like pacing is a lost art in these new shonen manga. This one manages to do it very well. We are slowly introduced to our characters. We learn some quirks about them, what their powers are. We're given time to learn about them, see them interact with each other. The comedy works well here to also introduce them. The comedy was actually another winning point for me in this manga. Sometimes the manga of this genre tend to be really edgy. They're trying very hard to seem cool, and this is the opposite. It's very silly. These boys are silly high school boys, as they should be. They're just decided that they're going to exorcise these ghosts that they come across. But they're very ridiculous. One character loves Slam Dunk, so I liked him because I also love Slam Dunk, but the other characters are great as well. I tend to complain about the high school setting that a lot of manga are taking place in, but again, it works well here because these are silly high school boys. So having it set in high school and have the characters seem realistic for the setting was great. Now, when it comes to the actual ghosts / spirits that are introduced in this volume that get exorcised, they are not that impressive to me, but again, that's what I prefer. I want to focus on the characters rather than the situations that they get in with the fighting the ghosts or the monsters or whatever the case may be. In this case, it's ghosts. They're not scary. I don't think the art is particularly amazing, but it doesn't need to be. And of course, there's plenty of time for us to get introduced to actually scary ghosts in the future once we are well established with the characters and their motivations and such. So I ended up really enjoying this volume 1. I'm glad I gave it a try, despite my misgivings about it. I probably won't collect it because I really don't have space for another long-running shonen action manga at this point, but I will probably keep reading it on the Shonen Jump app or if my library gets it or whatever. Next up, I read a manga that I was very highly anticipating. This is Smile, put out by Kodama Tales, and since this is a new publisher, I will just say the quality of this manga is very, very nice. It has a dust jacket. I don't really care for dust jackets, but this one doesn't annoy me, so that's a plus. And it just feels like it's well put together. It feels like a nice volume of manga, and I don't think it's overpriced for that quality. So just a very brief review of the actual physical product of this manga. Normally, I don't really care about that, but since it is a new publisher, I thought I'd give you my first impressions of them. So this manga follows a journalist who is kind of struggling in his job. His boss is not very happy with his performance lately, and one day he gets approached at his door by these two people who have big smiles on their faces, and they are trying to introduce him to this organization. They say they are from the Smiling Heart Society, which is suspicious, but he initially dismisses them because they're just people coming up to his door. He assumes they're trying to sell him something or something like that. He's not interested, but they show him a flyer. And on the flyer is a picture of his estranged wife that he has not seen in quite a while, and he wants to know where she went, what happened to her. So he ends up joining the society to try to find her. So it is really difficult to talk about manga like this that have a really big mystery element because I don't want to say too much to spoil anything, but I do want to get my thoughts across. I will say I really enjoyed this manga. When these two people first show up at our main character's door, it is genuinely creepy. They're not really doing anything except for smiling too much, and I actually appreciate that. As I mentioned in Phantom Busters, the fact that a lot of manga kind of just throw everything at you immediately with the really cool art and the really cool monsters or whatever is not really working for me. But this manga, I feel like, did it very well, where it is creepy, but it's not going over the top with it, which I would prefer they wait until later once we have everything established to do that, so it will be more impactful. This allows us to really feel the suspense ramp up throughout the volume as our main character gets more involved with this organization and maybe or maybe not comes closer to finding out what happened to his wife. We also get little hints about our main character. His name is Yushi, and his life and potentially his past with his wife or what happened there, but just little tidbits, which is enough to get us intrigued but doesn't distract from the main story. I really appreciate that. Again, pacing for me, I realized, is like one of the most important aspects when reading a manga. It also helps us connect more with Yushi. I feel like sometimes when I read thriller or mystery manga like this, they kind of neglect to make us care about the main character, which is not the case here. And the only other thing I will say is, as we were getting close to the end of the volume, I realized that this manga has the potential to get much darker than I initially thought it would, which I like to read about, but sometimes things can be too dark for some people, so I do want to mention that. So overall, I would say this is a really great setup volume to a new mystery, horror, thriller manga, and I can't wait to read more. I have the next 2 volumes already waiting for me, and spoiler alert, you might see them in my next video. So yeah, definitely highly recommend this if this is a genre that you read. Next up, I read volume 1 of Divine Incursions. This is the manga, and this is an adaptation of the light novel, but I have not read that. Here we follow 2 people. One is Kadegishi here and his partner Miyagi as they basically go around Japan investigating strange things that they hear about, like giant body parts falling out of the sky. This is kind of episodic. Here we have 3 different chapters in this volume, and each one focuses on a different kind of situation. There are longer chapters as well, you can tell. And then the last chapter is kind of a part 1, so I feel like it will continue in the next volume, which I have not read because I don't think it's out yet. The first story was definitely the strongest for me. The imagery there was very striking. That's the one about the big giant body parts falling from the sky. So to see like this regular everyday pool with a giant hand in it, like a huge hand in it or arm, was definitely very striking. There was even a moment or two that I was genuinely a little bit creeped out. Unfortunately, that was only the case for the first story. The other 2 were okay. They weren't bad stories at all, but they just didn't elicit the same reaction from me. Our main characters are interesting enough. We get little tiny hints about their backstory. I'm sure we'll learn more about them later as the story continues. I will say that sometimes when I read a manga adaptation of a light novel, I feel like it doesn't stand on its own. Like, it doesn't feel like its own thing. It feels like it's very obviously an adaptation. I didn't have that problem here. If you hadn't told me that this was an adaptation of a light novel, I wouldn't have known. And then my only other comment is that there's some comedy elements that they try to do here. I don't care for those, but they're minor, so that's just a tiny gripe. I'm not super attached to this manga though, so I will probably read 1 more volume to see if I want to keep collecting it, but I did enjoy it. Next up is definitely the most hyped manga on this list for sure. This is Centuria. Viz is pushing this really hard right now. So I've only read volume 1. Volume 2 is on its way to me. This manga follows our main character here. His name is Julian. He is a slave. He has only known hardship his entire life. until one day he ends up on this ship full of other slaves, and a young mother shows him kindness for seemingly the first time in his life. Then something happens, I'm not going to say what, but a selfless act gives Julian a reason to live and something to protect. I have some criticisms about this manga for sure. Number one though, the art is amazing. I will try to show you something that is not spoilerific. We'll see if I can find anything. I mean, you can tell from the cover kind of. I also really like the design of this cover. But let's see if I can find something I can show you that is not spoilery. There's one image in the back, like towards the end, that I really liked. It was quite creepy. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. There's one. I like that image. It's kind of hard to tell here because this is supposed to be a color page, but they didn't make it colored in this volume. But the art is very, very good. I don't want to show you other things that happen in this volume. The art is great. It's definitely the highest point about this manga is the art. I really like how dark it is and the really bold lines. It makes the action scenes easy to follow, and there's certain things in here that look better with the art. I'm trying to be very vague, probably too vague for this manga. Unfortunately, I have quite a few issues with the actual storytelling of this manga. For me, when I pick up something like this, I want a manga that makes me think about things, okay? I want it to bring up dilemmas, make me think about characters who are morally gray or whatever. I feel like none of that is in here, with maybe one exception that we get a very tiny glimpse into. I feel like all the characters are either extremely nice and great and nothing bad that they could do, or they're super evil and they have no redeeming qualities, and there's just nothing left to think about. This makes the characters pretty uninteresting, and also pretty much the entire situation is not very surprising. You know what exactly is going to happen. Even the emotional moments that they're trying to give you just don't hit as hard because nothing is surprising. You know what's going to happen. And I think part of that is because of the message of this manga, which is clearly kindness triumphs over evil, which I don't mind a cheesy message. I actually kind of like a cheesy message in my manga. So I didn't mind that, but I still need some kind of intrigue, some dilemma, something to make me think about that while I'm getting this message, which is great. I don't know. I just want to think. I want manga to make me think, especially something like this. I want to consider things. I want something to chew on. I don't just want to read a very surface level story, which is what I feel like this is, even though it has some added twist to it. But as I mentioned, I do have volume 2 on its way to me. I will read that volume to see if it gets a little bit better. But so far, I'm not impressed. And honestly, this is kind of supporting my theory that the more Viz pushes a manga, the worse it is. So they've been pushing this one pretty hard. Again, I don't think this is terrible. It's just not what I want out of a manga like this right now. I just get suspicious anytime Viz really tries very hard to push a manga, and this is why they will never send me any free manga. And next up is one that definitely made me think and had some pretty disturbing characters who are also the main characters. Anyway, I read Immortality and Punishment Volume 1. So this is a zombie manga, basically. We follow our main character and a couple others. They're basically stuck in a love hotel when the zombie apocalypse starts. I think this manga as well has amazing art, especially the way the zombies are drawn. You can almost see them move. I almost felt like I was watching a horror movie, like a zombie movie that I've seen before, where the zombies, like, I almost felt like they were moving on the page. It was really, really well drawn. Very bloody, very violent, very gory, all the things you want out of a zombie manga, right? As for the actual story, it's pretty good, if a little typical. We follow a bunch of different people in this love hotel. Our main character is here. He's really, he has a dark past. He's definitely a messed up person. We see that for sure. You're gonna need trigger warnings for this manga, just for his past and what he's done. So the fact that we have other characters to follow who are also in the situation is good, because I feel like it would get kind of bogged down to follow this guy and try to root for him, even though he's a really horrible person. And I think I could see this becoming a movie. In fact, it felt like a couple zombie apocalypse movies that I've seen before. So if it became a movie or a TV show, I would actually watch it because it already felt like watching one. And it looks like this series will be complete at 8 volumes. So I will keep reading this. I probably won't read the volumes as they come out. I will probably wait until it's completed, but I have enjoyed this first volume. Next up, I read volume 1 of Grim Night Tales. This is a horror anthology manga. I did not do this on purpose, where pretty much all of these are horror manga. It just ended up being the case. That's what I've been reading. That's what I've been picking up. So this one, the stories are basically told by this very strange girl who's doing some bad things. It feels extremely similar to 100 Ghost Stories That Will Lead to My Own Death, except for the art might be a tiny bit better, but I feel like the art in that one like fits the story. The art is fine, it just doesn't add anything to it. I mean, it's creepy in some moments. So yeah, I didn't care for this one. I didn't find the actual stories that interesting, and I didn't find the little in-between sections with the girl telling the stories that interesting either. I just felt like I was reading like a worse version of 100 Ghost Stories That Will Lead to My Own Death, and that one does everything so well that I just don't need to read any more of it anyway. It was not that great. Next up, I tried another shonen supernatural manga. This is Bug Ego by the same author as One Punch Man and Mob Psycho 100. This one follows two high school boys, and they kind of explore different world hacks that they come across. A lot of the hacks are quite convoluted and weird and strange and pointless, but some of them have bigger consequences than they were expecting, and they start to seriously affect the boys' lives. So this is a very weird manga. It has some horror elements for sure, which of course I appreciated and I wasn't really expecting. The artist, who is different than the author, kind of changes up their art style during these creepy moments, which makes it more effective. There's also a mystery element as well. It seems like these boys are not the first people to discover these strange world hacks that they find. So there's kind of like, is there something else going on there? Are there other people who know about this? Were these things created? We don't really know. So I enjoyed all of those aspects of this manga. However, it does have this kind of shonen element running throughout, especially in the humor. It definitely has like high school boy humor, which I don't care for. Of course, that is the intended audience, is teenage boys, so I totally understand why that humor is included. It just didn't work for me particularly. So yeah, I enjoyed this first volume besides those parts. I don't think I'm going to collect it. Again, I'm trying to, you can see my space is limited, so I'm trying to keep the manga I'm purchasing down to a minimum. So I'm not going to buy this one, but I might continue reading on the Shonen Jump app, especially since this volume does kind of end on a cliffhanger, and I want to see just how horror it becomes, because it did have those elements and I liked those. But it could also, I could definitely see it going back to being just like a supernatural manga. So we'll see. Next up, this one was on the Viz app, I think. I have them both and I get them confused on which one is on which one, but I think this one was on the Viz app. This is Kamudo, Volume 1. So this takes place on this like sky paradise island called Hino Aruchi, and this is ruled by these creatures called demi-dragons. They're kind of half dragon, half human, but they don't really say that they're half human. This is basically a utopian country, but one day a prophecy foretells the potential end of the world, and this prophecy coincides with the birth of Kamuna, who is the grandson or great-grandson of like the elder demi-dragon, and he looks much more human than dragon. He's the character on the cover here. So I really liked the pacing of this first chapter. It's quite long, and we get a lot of time to establish the setting, this utopian country of these dragon people, and how their society works, and how they're all happy, of course, because they live in this utopia society, but also there's a lot of world building happening here, where we see some of these other creatures who are like demi-wolves, for example, or there's these demi-monkeys and a couple other ones, and we get little glimpses into them, and some of them are not quite happy with the situation with the dragons kind of living in this utopian society. We also get a lot of time to learn about our main characters, mostly the dragons, but a couple other ones, and basically what their personalities are, what their interests are, their roles in the society. I really appreciate all this because we are getting the setting established to us. This is how I prefer a manga to be paced. This is actually how I see it happens a lot in like regular books where we get an established setting and then we see what changes. So we get this prophecy and we know that something bad is going to happen. So to see this society where it is at first adds a lot of tension because we know that something horrible is going to happen. We also are able to see our main character Kamudo grow up and deal with the fact that he looks different from the other people around him. He does have some dragon elements, but he looks mostly human. And of course, he's kind of treated like an outcast because of that. We also get some hints of where his journey might lead him, especially in the opening color pages. So that's very interesting and adds some intrigue. I think the art is fantastic, especially in the first chapter or that first beginning section. However, I did notice that it starts to become a little bit inconsistent. And I think the only reason I really noticed this is because when you like go to the second chapter or the third chapter and then compare it to the first chapter just by flipping back and forth, you can literally see that the characters have less detail, the backgrounds have less detail. So if I didn't already, like if I wasn't already so enamored with the art, I probably wouldn't have noticed. But again, it doesn't become bad. It's not bad art by any means. It's just the fact that it was so good at the beginning made it more obvious where it became less consistent. But that didn't affect my enjoyment, of course. I am really intrigued by this fantasy setting and the world building. I love world building in manga and books and whatever. So definitely interested in reading more of this one. Again, I don't think I will collect it until I know it's something that I really want to read more of in the future, but I will probably still read the next volume from my library or from the Viz app. I feel like that was definitely the manga that kind of stood out in this group of things that I'm talking about. Now we're getting back on track. Next up, and finally, I read Lonely Deaths Lie Thick as Snow, Volume 1. This is a crime thriller manga. We follow a detective who is going to investigate what he thinks is a burglary, but he finds something very deeply disturbing in the basement of this giant house. That's literally all I'm going to say about this because I don't want to spoil anything, especially with, again, a really heavy mystery manga. I don't want to say anything else. I will say that the art in this manga is very good. It's very clearly digital. I mean, like, when you look at the house, like, I don't think someone drew that, but I don't mind that at all. The number one thing I'm looking for when I read a thriller manga is suspense. Is it making me want to read more? Or am I just frustrated with everything? This one, definitely, I want to read more. It is very suspenseful. The situation that we're introduced to is very dark and not straightforward at all. And there's different people saying different things about the situation. I'm trying to be super vague. When I say dark, though, definitely trigger warnings, especially for child abuse, if you need that. But again, I really enjoyed this manga. I think the suspense is great. I am very interested in reading more. However, almost every time I read a crime thriller manga, I want things to happen. Like, I have predictions in my head of what should happen. And then if they do happen, I'm disappointed because I predicted what happened. And if they don't happen, I'm disappointed because I wasn't right. So we'll see if that's the case here. Also, sometimes manga like this or stories like this just get so ridiculous and out of hand that I kind of lose interest. So we'll see if that happens here. I will probably, I think the next volume came out very recently, so I will pick up that one soon. Maybe I'll see if my local Barnes & Noble has it and include it in my next video. Hint, hint. But yeah, definitely enjoyed this one. If you like stories like this, definitely give it a go. I think it did everything that it needs to set up an interesting mystery story. So that's really all you can ask for when it comes to stuff like this, right? So yeah, those were all the volume ones I wanted to talk about in this video. If you've read any of these manga and you have anything to share that you'd like me to know, please leave your comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, let me know some volume ones that you think I should try that I might like. Only ones that came out this year though, because chances are if it came out before that, I've already read it or I'm not interested in it. But just anything you think you'd want me to review, let me know and I'll look into it. I know that Billy Bat is coming out very soon. I almost pushed this video off again until that came out, but I figured I'll just put this together and maybe I'll do Billy Bat as its own video. We'll see. But yeah, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye!